John Myers with Boulder Creek Investments. I'm here today with Greg Huebner and James Gregg, and they have a deal that they recently just completed, Bud Park and KCMO. So we're here to talk to these guys about the details of that deal they just did. So before we get started, let's go ahead and talk about your background and what made this deal specifically work for you guys.
Yeah, sure, John. So I've been in real estate for about 15 years now, since 2004, and always tried to, make the most use of space. So my mind always gravitated towards multifamily, even though I was trying to do something similar from a smaller scale, larger house perspective with multiple units in one property. So that's kind of where my own mind's always been. Obviously, we've done some other deals together as well, and this opportunity kind of fell on my lap. I reached out to James, and the rest is history, as they say.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm kind of a similar approach. I've done a lot of real estate. Kind of got started, I would say 2004-ish as well, more on the construction side back then. But I've done a lot of apartment appraising as well as a lot of residential flips. So this was kind of a combination of the two. Greg, like he said, found the deal, gave me a call, and it's a little hairier than maybe some of the other deals that we've discussed internally, but thought it was a really interesting project and a good fit for us. So yeah, like you said, the rest is history.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to hear the details on this one. I know you guys have extensive backgrounds, and you guys are the right team for this one. Greg, how did you find this one?
Yeah, so it really just networking, honestly, and not only myself but also my realtor networking. So I had been buying a few smaller properties in the Kansas City area, and had just mentioned that I had to go out to visit my multifamily unit down in Lee Summit there, and he's like, well, would you be interested in a 29 unit? I was just like, yeah, I'll take a look at anything. And that was in March of this year, 2019, and so I took a look at it, presented an LOI, got it under contract, and moved forward. So just about networking and being active, really.
Yeah, and that's definitely the name of the game in this deal. You never know what comes up for sure. That's how we stumble upon a lot of them. So, James, this one doesn't seem as straightforward. Can you talk about some of the curveballs that came up while doing this one?
Yeah, definitely. So with this deal, Greg has described it as kind of an old school seller, and I think that is just it's an appropriate way of describing just kind of the situation. Great guy, easy to work with, but they maybe didn't dot their I's and cross their T's as well as they could have when they were buying the property. So we've had some ramifications coming up from that. So we got the survey done, and there's some encroachment on the survey, so just kind of working through that. Another issue was they had the single family house, which is next to the apartment building as part of the package, which is fine, but they're on the same deed, even though they're on separate parcels. So as we're going to finance it, we're talking to these people about 30 units, and they look at what the 30 units are, and a lot of the lenders are saying, I'm not going to lend on a single family house and an apartment unit at the same time. So all of a sudden now we need to find two different lenders to go for the single family as well as the multifamily. And then with them being on the same deed, now we need to split those two things apart so we can close them separately with those separate lenders. So it's kind of been a lot of those types of things, just kind of cleaning up maybe some neglect or maybe some lack of forethought from the previous owners. So I think that's maybe where we're creating some of the value, is just some of that cleanup work and making things right, being sure that the accounting, the utilities, the legal behind everything is done up to standards, to today's standards.
Did that push you a little bit on your process as far as the time?
A little bit. Greg and I have joked about this. I think he said it was March that he had it under contract, and it's we're moving into December now. We haven't closed on it. I was scanning due diligence documents in like May or June, thinking we were going to close, real soon.
Right.
But everything's just been pushed and pushed and pushed.
Well, at least it's still in process. As you guys know, there's always delays that come up on uh, projects for sure. So, Greg, what helped you keep this one together?
Yeah, so I mean, James mentioned some of the delays. We're still going. We're just fine tuning some things right now. When we're recording this, we've actually taken over management. That was one of the things that we've actually done. That kind of helped us stay engaged. We could start executing our business plan, knowing that we were going into winter, and we needed to. We wanted to get this going as soon as possible.
Right.
So obviously we had money invested too from inspections and earnest money and things like that. And so we really built a great relationship with the seller, with his son-in-law. We can have really direct conversations and know that it's coming from where it's coming from, and not get bent out of shape on this one too much. So it's really been, it's actually one of those relationships that, again, the networking component I talked to earlier, that will extend out further beyond this deal with some of the things that the son-in-law and I will eventually and have started doing, not only in Kansas City but in some other areas as well. So it's just keeping your eye on the prize, keep moving forward no matter what the delays are, no matter what the headaches are, being able to unpackage things to get the title company's been great, but they can only take things so far. You have to unpack stuff a little bit more to get it across to the realtors and the sellers and say, this is actually what we need to do. They've been very appreciative of that, as well as our lender, just trying to unpack everything and making sure what James said, that hey, we're getting everything corrected right now, so we can execute it properly. And if we go to sell it or refinance it or whatever in the future, we have everything. We have all the I's dotted and the T's crossed, and everything is perfect from there on out.
Yeah, I think a buyer will appreciate that one day for sure.
I hope so.
Hopefully they pay for it too.
Yeah, and some of these things are a blessing in disguise. While we all appreciate the easy transaction, it's definitely good for yourself, especially if you plan on taking your real estate career, pretty far into the future, because a lot of these things may come up in other deals, and you'll have the experience to take care of these issues. So,
just on that one point there,
mm-hmm.
John. Just on that one point, we've bought properties. We've all bought properties individually, collectively. We get this title opinion back from this title company, but unless you actually read it and understand what the exceptions are, what needs to transact before the title company can actually insure it, you're basically paying for something that you have no idea what is there. I mean, you're paying to have legal right to that property now and in the future. And if you don't understand what that actually means, you're doing yourself a disservice. So I would just really caution everybody, and actually people should educate themselves. Talk with a title company, talk with a closer there, and hey, what does this all mean? You have 8 exceptions in here. We need to have legal documents from the buyer, legal documents from the seller, et cetera, et cetera. I had another transaction, just a quick side note, that the LLC of the seller had lapsed. Had gone out of business. Basically, they didn't pay their filing fee, so then they had to backtrack 9 years of time to go back and say that yes, this person had 100% control of this LLC and has the authority and the right to execute to sell this property. Otherwise, somebody's just selling your property out from underneath you. Right. So that's really a takeaway from this that I've really learned, and I'm being much more cautious on in the future for any transactions, really digging into those title opinions.
And just to add on to that, do you find that most title companies come out and talk to you about those title exceptions, clouds on title at all, or do you have to dig into them and bring them up?
I guess from my experience, they'll hand you the report, and they might do a quick little summary. Hey, we need your LLC docs if it's
Mhm.
you know, a newer title company you haven't worked with or something like that. But for the most part, if you ask a question, they're gonna find the answer. They might not know it right then because maybe they didn't do the actual search, the closer that you're working with, but they're going to get the right answer. They're going to help you out. Again, you're their customer. And most
Right.
people don't really understand that. And so really building those relationships with those title companies, one, helps speed up your transactions, and two, you can build a trust relationship there that they're going to look out for you. You're going to do business with them and go forward from there. Again, the networking effect.
Nice. Yeah, and and sometimes you'll be able to prep them, if it's coming from an old school seller or, it's kind of a messy project, then they'll be sure to look out for any other those
Right.
things on the title. So
Yeah.
that's definitely good information. So James, this one is in between, let's say, the size of a larger syndication and also a smaller property. Can you tell us some pros and cons on doing this size of deal?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the obvious pro is as you get fewer units, it's cheaper, right? And this property especially is maybe not in the most desirable part of Kansas City, so that also makes it a little bit cheaper. But really, that makes it very affordable for one or two or three people to come together, stroke a check for your down payment, and just take the whole thing down. So I think that's the obvious pro that a well-paid W-2 full-time employee could go take down a 20, 30, maybe 40 unit property if they had a little bit of time to save up or if they were flipping houses on the side to make some money or something like that. So obvious pro there. But I think the con with this property, as well as properties in this region, in this neck of the woods, both financially as well as geographically, is like the management and the financing and all the things that kind of come around it. So like, this one's going to be less than $1 million when we're all in. So what do you do for financing on that? Because Fannie and Freddie want to finance bigger properties. That means we've got to go to a local bank or a credit union, which means they're gonna shoot for like a 15-year amortization with a 70% LTV, which any real estate investor is going to say that's really going to kill your cash flow. So Greg's been really proactive about this one, actually, to start to build relationships with banks that we might work with to do some permanent financing down the road. So just something for people to be aware of there. Versus with a syndication, you're dealing with a bigger property. Fannie and Freddie like those. Or if you're the passive investor, you're writing a check, you're part of the deal, but you're not worrying about the financing quite as much on those types of things. So, yeah, I think those are the pros and cons that really jump out to me. It's just how much hassle and how much time do you want to take on as an investor?
That makes sense. And that's something, where we always struggle with. When you see a deal, sometimes you don't worry too much about the size, it's all about the numbers. So, and it gives you, addition to the portfolio. So
Yeah,
that's good information.
which is awesome. But if you've got a full-time job already, like how much time is this new passive investment going to take on? I think for Greg and I, this one's not passive.
Well,
I don't know anything passive, honestly.
yeah,
Well,
and you guys will, you probably get to more of the passive state or try to, make that deal into something better for a buyer one day, because
yeah,
that's the
yeah.
goal. So, so where's the wisdom from both you guys? What would you say about this one as far as uh, other investors getting into this type or size deal? I guess Greg, you can go first one on this one.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, to James's point, this isn't, this is far from being passive, but one of the reasons why I actually went after this deal after looking at it was the on-site property manager. And we know we pay him, but he looks after the property because he doesn't want to live with somebody that he doesn't like. And that's really beneficial. And I've told James this, I think I've told the sellers this, that if the this person didn't come with the transaction, I probably wouldn't buy it. And it does worry me, almost every day that this person might leave or something like that. But again, I think we've, we're continuing to build a trust relationship. We understand where, we both are seeing eye to eye. It's a little bit different than what he's used to in terms of the rehab and kind of where we're going with things. But I think he's understanding of where we want to do and how we want to help people. And this is, the unit sizes are smaller in this building, which is good and bad. It's actually, I actually find it to be good because we can actually provide affordable housing to people. Now, it doesn't, it's a nice thing to say, but it's another thing to actually be able to do that. And so we can provide really nice, clean, safe, dry amenities, secure premises to our tenants there, to our residents, but yet still be in a price point that doesn't break their budget. So, I think, just being able to, figure out how you can utilize, people is really beneficial. And again, that just comes down to the networking effect. So if you do find another building of similar size and stature, finding and you might have to go through a few, but finding a really good tenant, property manager, handyman person, it's really been beneficial to us so far.
No,
Yeah.
that definitely makes sense. And you're always trying to benefit him and the building and you guys by finding better tenants. So, that's gonna be a pro for him for sure. So, what do you think, James?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more with Greg on this one, because this size property is with management is difficult. Like once you got 100 units, you can have someone on site, you can pay them a salary. It all makes sense. It works out great. If it's a single family home, you just hire a single family property manager. It's kind of done. But like this in between area, you really need to have a plan for how you're going to watch over that, because it's an asset and it takes time and it takes effort. And the on-site person that we're working with he's fantastic, and he's vested in it. So I can't emphasize that more, of having a plan to watch over the property, be it a professional property management company, or be it an on-site person, or maybe it's yourself and you've got a little bit more time that you can put into it. But I think that is just key for this size and this type of project.
Makes sense. And just wanted to add too, hearing the pros and cons of a deal like this, that's kind of where the opportunity lies. You're right in the middle of being, too small or too big. So this is where you definitely take the action and get it done where other people might not have the time or resources. So, and again, it just adds to your experience. So as far as that, I think we're good on the questions. It sounds like we're gonna go ahead and have another session here in the immediate future. But until then, we appreciate your guys' time, James, Greg, and we appreciate everyone for joining us. And we will talk to you soon.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Bye.
Bye, James.